Hi everyone, it's the EFI guy here. Just thought I'd do another video. Obviously, at the current time that I'm filming this, the COVID-19 virus is a big thing, and we're all kind of like stuck in isolation. I know I am in the UK. I'm not sure what you guys are like in the rest of the world and how you're keeping yourself occupied. But anyway, I thought that this would be a really good excuse to do something on the car that I've been wanting to do now for quite some time. And that is, I'm going to be fitting a drive-by-wire throttle system to the Nissan S15. Some of you may be looking at this and thinking, wow, this guy is insane. Why would he want to do that? And there's quite a few reasons why. So there's a common misconception to begin with that actually drive-by-wire throttle isn't very responsive. However, in the aftermarket world, drive-by-wire throttle bodies can be very responsive, and to be honest, it's all to do with the controller that is on the ECU. So ECU Master comes with its own H-bridge outputs, and they are capable of driving a 6 amp throttle body like this. And then finally as well, it all comes down to the pedal and the throttle body that you choose. So why am I fitting drive-by-wire to the S15? What am I looking to gain? To begin with, this throttle plate, this butterfly valve, is actually bigger. So it lets more airflow in, which is great. And one of the common issues with letting more airflow in is that on a cable throttle, you actually lose some of the throttle manipulation. So you have very limited movement in the throttle before you're starting to let quite a lot of air in, and that means that if you're driving in town or you're driving a street car, it becomes very difficult to actually manage the power. Whereas with a drive-by-wire system, I can actually tell the ECU that unless I'm pressing the throttle 50% of the way down, then I don't want the throttle to let 50% of the air in. And notice I say 50% of the air because it's not linear. 50% opening of the throttle doesn't necessarily mean that you're getting 50% of the amount of air that the engine can take. You might be getting 75%, and obviously that means that the remaining 50% of the pedal travel is only covering 25% of your power range. Another reason is engine safety features. So I can tell the ECU that if I see certain parameters like coolant temperature, oil pressure to only allow me to open the throttle so far. Some of you with OEM cars will have heard of like the dreaded limp home mode, but actually that's quite a good thing, especially on track. And with a standalone ECU, I can always override that if I know it's just a sensor issue. So I've gone through why I'm using a drive-by-wire throttle, and for my application, like I said, I'm using a 350Z pedal for quite a few reasons, mainly because it's easier to bolt it straight up to the flywall and it matches the pedals that I've already got in the car. And I'm using an Audi 1.8T Audi TT throttle body. It uses a 60x60 bolt pattern, and from what I can understand on the internet, that is the same bolt pattern as what's on the SR20 Det in my S15, so it should just bolt straight up. Let's go straight into installing it on the car. I'm just going to hold these two up to camera, and as you can see, like I said, the throttle plate in the drive-by-wire throttle body is actually significantly bigger than in the Nissan one. So you can see there and there. So that's going to let a lot more airflow in, which is great, and I can tune it so that it still feels like the OEM throttle body. So, problem number one that I've come into that suggests it's not a direct bolt-on is the factory bolts don't actually fit in any of the holes. So I'm going to have to drill that out. Shouldn't be too much of a problem on the bench drill. I think they're only like maybe 2 mil out, so it's not too much of an issue. On to problem number two. The stock SR20 bolts are not long enough to go through the throttle body. That's an easy fix. I'll just have to buy some longer bolts. Whilst waiting for the bolts to arrive, it was a good opportunity to move on to the wiring. Here I'm using thin wall automotive cable to draft out the length of wire that I'll need. Putting wires through the grommet can be difficult, so attaching them to a metal dowel will help. Once cut to size, it's just a case of measuring out the rest of the wires to match. Crimping the terminals on. Attaching the connector. And protecting the harness with some braided sheath. Once the harness is finished, it's just a case of feeding it back through the firewall and attaching it to the ECU using the pin-out guides provided. You can find more details on how to wire in sensors and other electronic components in my previous video. Next I'm going to move on to the pedal in the car. So there's just two 10mm bolts and then the actual throttle cable at the top there. Once that's removed I can put the 350Z pedal in and I can wire all of that in as well, similar to the throttle body that I've just shown earlier. So that's the 350Z pedal in. It's much more easier to get the pedal in than it is to take the old one out. And as you can see here, the actual 350Z pedal has a little stopper leg, and that's currently just fouling on the OEM one that was there for the factory pedal. So what I'm gonna do is just take out this little block here, and that should give it plenty of room, and we can just rely on this now to stop the pedal instead. Okay, so now that I've got the pedal in, I'm just going to route the wiring for that, and then it's just a case of waiting for these bolts to arrive. For you guys, that'll seem like moments, but obviously for me, I'm going to have to wait for it to come in post. So this should be the same for S14 and S15, definitely. I'm not too sure about the S13, but there can't be much difference. The actual routing for the wire itself comes from the pedal, which is just down there, and along here. And then if you look in here, you can see it's going to come up here and around that little frame there. It'll then come out down here, behind the glove box here, and just behind that metal plate where that yellow wire goes, behind the metal plate, and then just down there and into the rat's nest of wiring that I've got down there.
Several days later.
So, the bolts have finally arrived, which is great news. However, problem number 3 is that the bolts I have ordered are too long. So what we're going to have to do is cut the bolt down by about 10 mil. So I'm just going to do that on all the bolts now. There we go. That's the throttle body all bolted up now. So whilst I was editing this video, I realised that I didn't actually film an ending clip, so here we are 3 weeks later. Hopefully you found this video useful. I appreciate it was quite a whistle-stop tour, so if you have any questions, please leave them in the comment section below. I'll be putting a spec list in the description of the different parts that I've used if you're interested in doing this on a similar car. If you found this video useful, make sure to give it a like. I'll be producing a part 2 on how to configure the drive-by-wire throttle body in the actual EMU Black software itself. So if you want to see that video, make sure you hit the subscribe button. And yeah, that's it for this video. I hope you're all staying safe during the lockdown period, and I'll see you in the next one. Fearless.